So we're going to start the recording. So hello everybody and welcome to call 3 for January's edition of 6 Weeks to Success. Yay! Hello! And as long as you're in a quiet place, go ahead and stay unmuted. But if you do have background noise, then yes, please keep yourself muted because obviously we know that we've got others who are going to be listening to this. So let's jump right in. Let me share my screen. And here we go. So welcome. We did it. Week 3. Yay! So I know that it's a lot of work sometimes when we're going through training, but that is where the growth happens. So embrace all of the new learnings. And like we were talking about, make sure you're starting to take action on things because that's where the change happens. So let's take a quick review and let's take a look at what we've done so far. All right, we've talked about product knowledge, and that is really key to maximizing your sales and maximizing your bookings. The better you know and love the power tools, the more passionate you are about them, the more it's going to shine through, and the more people are really going to get some help from those different power tools. We also talked about belief and how important that is, the belief triangle, and your belief can really dictate what happens, and remembering that we can retrain our brain, and our brain will do whatever we tell it to, and it will believe whatever we tell it to believe. We also learned how to talk to people out and about, and I know that can be challenging for some people. It can be scary at the beginning, but it's the coolest thing when you start just meeting people and making new friends. It's so much fun. We've also talked about passion and how your passion shines through. And when you are being genuine about something, it's infectious. So always make sure you're being you. And if you ever feel your passion waver, take a minute, talk to your upline, and get reinvigorated and fall back in love with something in your business, because that is going to carry you farther than anything else ever will. So let's talk about host coaching this week. This is actually one of my favorite topics for a couple of different reasons, because we are truly partners with our hosts. And if you never noticed, our hosts make in free product approximately what we make in commission when you're looking at a base commission. So we are truly a team, and the better we work as a team, the better it is for everybody. So we're going to talk about working smarter and not harder, right? I mean, this is not a brand new concept. This is something that we've heard before. And what we want to make sure, okay, there's some feedback. So I think it's got the 443 area code. Thank you. So we want to talk about working smarter, not harder. And what does that mean as far as Pampered Chef goes? It means making sure that we are doing things exceptionally well with our host beforehand. So when we get to the party, it's going to be super successful. You've probably heard this before. Host coaching is where you earn your paycheck. Your show is where you pick it up. Okay? Because if we're not coaching our host well, the host isn't getting free products, we're not making a whole lot of money, and nobody's happy. So a lot of emphasis really needs to be on host coaching and host coaching effectively. So how do we do that? Okay, because you can go and do a $200 party or a $1,200 party. What's the difference? How do we make that happen? So let me ask you this. If you were blindfolded, could you make a basket from the foul line? Could you throw a basket into the hoop? Probably not, right? Shaq, maybe. He might be able to do it, but that's different. It's not impossible. It could happen that you could make the shot, but it's pretty unlikely, all right? Now, Shaq probably could, because he has so experienced. He's been doing this for so long. He's practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced, and he's perfected his art. Doesn't hurt that he's 7 feet tall. It's only 3 feet away from him for him to make the basket. But that's him using his natural talents to the best of his abilities. And that's exactly what we're going to work on now with host coaching. We're going to take the ball from your host's hands and teach your host how to slam dunk. They don't know unless we teach them, okay? And actually, especially if they're consultants with other direct sales, understand that, first of all, Pampered Chef truly has some of the best training in the industry, so they are likely not getting the same level of training. And second, they may not be as engaged. So simply because somebody is a consultant with another direct seller, it doesn't mean that they know what they're doing. Make sure that you are giving them every benefit that you give to every other host, okay? All right, so obviously we'd rather have a big party than a small one, right? And that's for the host as well as you. Remember, we're a partner, we're a partnership, all right? So the difference between having a mediocre show and a fantastic show is giving your host a very clear and concise path as to what he or she needs to be doing and getting them lined up for a $1,000 party, okay? Again, we're working smarter, not harder. Would you rather do a $300 party or a $1,000 party? Would you rather make 60 bucks or 220 bucks? Okay, this is pretty simple. So what we're going to do is talk about how we host coach, where we host coach, what do we say. And the very beginning of host coaching starts as soon as you book the party, okay? So when you are at an in-person party and you're doing your full service checkout, because everybody does them, right? Every time. Nodding, yes, of course we do full service checkouts every time. When you book the party, you want to take a second, and it's okay if, people are going to be, eating and drinking, and it's okay if you take a minute or two. We're not taking 20 minutes, but take a couple of minutes with your new host because it's going to really pay off big. You're going to ask the host a couple of questions, and they're all right here. Ask, what do they really like about the party tonight? What products are they excited about? What's on the wish list? And you want to do this because you're starting to develop this relationship with your host right away. Your host is at the party, having fun, excited about booking their party. So we want to jump right in and really help them get moving. Okay, we want to give them host packets, of course, and we'll talk about that, and let them know that one catalog is for them to go to town on with their marker, and it's their giant wish list, and make sure that they understand that the other two are for them to pass around. Of course, you'll talk more in detail about that with more host coaching, but from the beginning, they need to understand that part of this is they're collecting orders from other people other than who will be at the party, okay? We also want to help them understand that not everybody they invite is going to come, and we need to be specific. So we tell them typically about a third of the people invited can come. And we also tell them that the goal is to have at least a $1,000 party, and that typically means 15 people at their house, okay? So that means they need to be inviting about 45 people. Okay, and then what I tell them is out of those 45 people, we know about a third of the people will come, and a lot of the people who can't make it that night are still going to want to book a party. And so those outside orders will make a big difference, okay? And helping them to understand that it's $215 worth of free stuff. And if you're still working with your January parties, that's $430 worth of free products. I've had 2 hosts do that already this month, and my God, were they psyched, okay? You are working for your host when we're doing these calls, okay? The other thing we want to talk about is sending out invitations. Personal invitation is critical, whether it's a paper invitation, a one-on-one, but a Facebook invite does not cut it, okay? Also, basic things here is finding out the best way to contact a person, because some people will always answer a text, but they'll never pick up their phone, or vice versa, and finding out when you can set up the next time to call so you can really make sure you're getting off to a good start, okay? All of this should be pretty, nothing should be brand new here, right? So this should all be sort of a review, I'm hoping. I'm seeing some nodding heads. Good. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. When we book the party, we want to talk to them right away. So excited about your party on the 5th. That's what we're just talking about. What are we going to say to them? What did you like the most? What are you excited about getting? You're really going to have a lot of fun. We want to make sure that we are saying these words out loud to our host. Now, if you're doing a virtual party, the same thing is going to occur, okay? As soon as you book the party, call them. Go ahead, talk to them, because that is going to make it even more real, because it's very easy to get lost behind a screen with a virtual party, and building that relationship is much easier when you can actually talk to each other, You can hear each other's voices, you can hear the intonation, you can laugh, you can have a real conversation and connect with your host. So absolutely doing the exact same thing, whether it's virtual or in person, okay? So we talked to them about inviting 40 people. And what do a lot of your hosts say? I don't know 40 people. Well, they do, but they don't think they do. This is where we're going to help them, okay? So what we're going to do is help brainstorm. And this is something that will probably happen on your 24-hour call. This, you don't want to get into this much detail when you're sitting, you know, at the party, if you're doing an in-person party. This is going to be on a follow-up call, okay? So what we want to do is help them to come up with 40 names in about 4 minutes. And this is basically the launch list. So if you all are sending the emails, once you create the party, you all send the emails to your host, right? Everybody know what I'm talking about? Nodding yes. Okay. So in that email, they have a link to the top 40 list. It's basically the same thing as our launch list. Has everybody seen that? Everybody nod. Yes, we've seen that. Okay. Now here's a question. Do you ever work on that with your hosts? That is the big difference right there. Having them pull it out, work on it and brainstorm with them. Who do you know from here? Who do you know from here? And once they actually start going through and naming names, that's when the floodgates open. Then they're going to be like, oh, and this person, and this person, and this person. Because left to our own devices, we only want to invite people we think are going to say yes. Okay? That is when our job really kicks in, to help them understand that, first of all, not everybody that we think is going to come will. Some people we never thought would come would say yes. You've all seen this happen, right? Okay. Your hosts haven't. They don't know. This is where your expertise is really going to help them. Okay. So you're going to have them work on the 40 guests in 4 minutes and let them know that it's not just who your host knows, but it's who their friends know. Okay. And that is what can make the party a really big success. And some people will give a gift to any person, any invited person who brings a guest, somebody the host doesn't know. You can offer a gift, you can offer a season's best or whatever you want. That's completely up to you. But if you stop and think about it, let's say you put a season's best in the order for everybody who brings a friend. It's gonna cost you pennies. And you can really quickly expand your pool of people, okay? So there's lots of different ways that we can help do that. And the other thing that you can do is make sure when you're talking to the host that when you're going through that top 40 list, that they're thinking about all those different categories, okay? Because when we are able to help the host branch out into the different areas of his or her life, that really increases the likelihood of a better party as well, okay? All right, so we're also going to talk about some other things that some really fantastic consultants do. This is a host tic-tac-toe. So Katie Hochstetler is she's pretty much the top in sales every year, and it's incredible. She did over $50,000 in sales in 1 month. The woman knows what she's doing, okay? So this is what she uses. So this is going to be a very simple thing that is super effective. Now, these are some very basic things that she's going to put in the host packet. And for each tic-tac-toe, you, as the consultant, offer your host $10 in free product value. And remember, this will get put in under the host's order. So there's going to be a discount on it, okay? And when you look at what these include, these things are huge because this is what you both want. And notice the free box is not in the middle. She did that on purpose. Because if you're looking at, if the host has 2 parties booked before the party, or 1 party, you have all of the names and addresses. And when you look at what these other tic-tac-toes are, think about what that's going to mean for your host, for the party, for the guest sales, and how that in turn will help you. And when we have something like this that the host can actually look at and reference, it goes a lot farther than when we mention it on one call and then we forget to talk about it again. This can be really huge. Okay, and don't worry, these things are all going to be shared too, so you'll be able to have access to all this, okay? All right, so another thing that some consultants do is what's called the guilt letter. It doesn't have to be called that, but you may have heard these, you may have seen these before. But basically, it's an actual handwritten letter, and that's the key. It's got to be handwritten. And it tells them, thank you so much for booking a party with me. And saying things along the lines of that although a job looks like fun, and it is, our job is actually how we pay our bills. And you can add something like, in the unlikely event that you would need to cancel or reschedule, please let me know as soon as possible so I can fill that date and still be working that night. Some people will also include, thank you so much for booking a party with me. Your party is how I'm taking my family to Disney this year, and I couldn't do it without you. All of these things are true, okay? Make something personal, and this is another way that you can connect with your host so they understand and you guys can really work together as a team. Okay. Another thing is layered invitations. And again, this is probably not earth-shattering news, but are you doing it? And are you doing it consistently with every single host? So let's start at the top. All right. So we're going to start with having them actually call their friends. Nobody does that, right? Yeah, have them call their friends. That's a really important thing. It's a one-on-one. Then we also want to do a text or an email or private message to say, hey, I just left you an email or a voicemail. Can't wait to hear what you think. Facebook events. I'm sure a lot of you set up Facebook events for in-person as well as obviously a virtual party, but for in-person party, a lot of you do Facebook events for those too. Nod, no, yes, do we? Some of you. Okay, so those are fantastic, but we all know that you can't rely on Facebook even for online parties, okay? So you can do calls, you can do text, email, private message, Facebook event, mailing out the postcard or a mini catalog. And then you can also do Canva or PicCollage. It used to be RedStamp. Any of you familiar with that? No? Okay, so what these are apps. Some of you, yes, some of you know. They're free apps. And I think we've got a picture. I'll show you. There's a picture coming up. But basically, it's an app on your phone. And it's just a super really quick, and it's a very bright and inviting way to do this invitation. So what you do is just like everything else, you'll create it once, and then you're just going to edit a couple of lines, and then you can text that right to your host. So your host gets it from you, and then just forward it on to all of his or her friends. And it's another really fantastic way to invite people. And there's Canva or PicCollage. They're both free apps. And they're also the same software that people will use for virtual parties for creating all of those different graphics. It's the same thing. It's just an app on the phone, so you can make an invite out of it. Okay. But the most important thing is that their host is, we explain to our host why they need to be inviting in many ways. Whenever somebody tells you to do something, don't you want to know why? Your hosts are no different. Okay, so when we start talking with them, we say, you know, my job is to make sure that you and your friends have a great night and that you get a nice big shopping spree at the end. The goal is to make sure you have at least $1,000 in sales. Can I help you get there? Will you let me show you? Ask for that permission. And then as you're going through, you can explain, here's why we do layered invitations. Okay, maybe not those words, but here's why you want to reach out to your people in a couple of different ways. You know that some people live on Facebook. You know some people never check it. You know some people will respond to a text right away. You know some people live on email. Explain to people why it's important, and they're much more likely to do it. Because the end game is you are in this to make sure they're happy and they're successful. And when they understand what's happening, it's much more likely to happen. Okay? It's also a really good idea to get the guest list right away. Now, some consultants will mail out invitations, some consultants won't. So I'm just curious, how many of you actually mail out invitations for your hosts, either consistently or have ever done it? Has anyone ever done it? Okay, Michelle, anybody else? Stacy, a couple of times? Okay. Why do we do this? Go ahead and unmute yourselves. Why do some consultants swear by this? Why do you think this is important? What do you think?
Probably to make sure that people are actually getting invited.
Exactly. Okay. And
less cancellations.
Yep. Yep. How fun is it to get an actual fun thing in the mail? Okay. Most bills is mostly bills and junk mail. So this is another layer. And the thing to remember is if the host says, yeah, I texted a bunch of people, do you know if they did? Hopefully, but there's no way to know. This is one way that you can partner with your host. You can take some of the work off of your host's lap, and you can also ensure that people are getting invited, okay? And then when the host is layering in other things, it really makes a difference. And why do we need this guest list? Again, tell your host why, and it's much more likely that your host will want to do it. More attendance, bigger orders, they're going to bring guests, they're going to get outside orders, and people who have $1,000 shows, send a guest list, okay? So these are all things, and if you think about this, most of these ideas aren't brand new, but layer them all together and imagine the difference it makes to your hosts. Okay, so stop and think about that for a minute. It's like, oh my God, if I did all these things, and none of these things are hard, okay? But if you did every single one of these things with every single host, what would that do for your party average? Okay, would really make a big difference. Extra incentives are always a good option too. And it can be like for having 15 people in attendance or whatever number you choose. And sometimes it's, you'll bring dessert, like the chocolate lava cake, which will cost you all of about $2.50. You get to show off the rock crock, and everybody loves chocolate. It can be something like some people will say for every person who brings a guest, like I said, you can do a season's best or something like that. It's up to you. Make sure they're very inexpensive and that they're easy to do. But how many times have we all jumped through hoops when Pampered Chef gives us something free? Okay, like the salad cutting bowl, that's not a super expensive item, but didn't we all want to earn it like yesterday, like as soon as we knew we could? Okay, it's human nature. Give them a carrot, give them something fun to go for, all right? So let's talk about the host pack. I know everybody does things a little bit differently in the host packet, and there are different ways that you can do it. Honestly, the most important things are going to be the catalogs, of course, the host and guest specials, a kit credit coupon, and a little information about the business. Absolutely, absolutely make sure those are included. Now, this says outside order forms. I stopped sending them because most people order online, and it's faster and it's safer for your guests to be ordering online. I don't think I've ever had somebody say, oh, can you please send me a paper order form? It doesn't happen. Okay, that's up to you. If you want to send out mini catalogs, you certainly can. If you want to send the invitations, you can, but often, and I'm sure some of you have run into this if you've included the invitations before, you get to the house and the host is like, oh, here's the invitations, I didn't send them. Great. So if you're going to do the invitations, make sure that you are the one sending them out to make sure they get sent out. Okay. And this, of course, this is where it's up to each person, but we can tell you from experience some of the things that tend to work best. Okay. This is an example. So these are Red Stamp, which Red Stamp is no longer around, but it's the same idea of Canva or Piccollage. You can kind of create them. And then what happens is most of this stays the same. You change the date, the time, the name, that basic info, but you don't have to change the graphics. So these are something that you can duplicate over and over and over again. Okay. All right, so we had talked about making sure it's clear and concise when we're talking to our hosts. Did you know the number one complaint of hosts, and there was actually research done, this was a few years ago, but it was across direct sales companies, not just Pampered Chef. The number one complaint was that the host did not hear from their consultants enough. Number one complaint, okay? They need to know what they should be doing next. They want to hear from you because you are the expert. Even if you don't feel like the expert, you are, okay? And you know the things that are going to make the party work. So make sure that you are consistently reaching out to your host. Imagine if you booked a party with somebody and you didn't hear from them for 3 weeks. Would you think the party was still on? Probably not, okay? So communication is key. We're going to want to be in touch with our hosts weekly, assuming that you're booked a few weeks out, okay? And what do you say? Now, let me ask you this. How many of you use the host coaching checklist that Pampered Chef has for us? Yeah, okay. Dee, Amanda, cool. Who else? Stacy does. Katrina, do you? Okay. So that is going to give you what we should be talking about. the things that I'll tell you, and I'm going to share my screen here. Hold on, maybe I am. Maybe I'm not. Okay, maybe I'm not switching my screens. Hold on. Can you all see the host coaching screen now? Did I do it right? No, can't see it. All right, so let's, now can you see it? Host coaching screen? Okay, so this is gonna tell you what you should be doing, but are you doing them? Okay, because I'll tell you what I find myself doing sometimes is I'll kind of skirt over them. I'm like, yeah, check, yeah, I sort of did, and I kind of don't always do them. So make sure that you're doing them thoroughly. And the most important things are always gonna come back down to the wish list, which is why they're hosting the party, the invitations, who they've heard from, who they haven't heard back from yet, and the outside orders. Those are the three things as far as the party goes. And then obviously making sure we're talking about the opportunity for her or for he or her, she or, wow, for either, for your host to use the Kit credit coupon if they want to, okay? All right, so let's come back to, all right, are we back on the, can you see my slide now? Okay, perfect. So if you're using those, you should have a pretty good idea of what to say. These are your must-dos. You got to talk to them all the time. You got to talk to them at least once a week. Now, the texting is good. The Facebook messaging is good. Phone calls are critical, especially for virtual parties. You got to have at least one good phone call because that's when you're really going to connect. That's where you can cover a lot and understand where the host is coming from, and you're going to get to know your host, and your host will get to know you. So at least one time, make sure you have an actual phone call with them. And if some of your hosts don't want to be on the phone, you can tell them one phone call, it'll be less than 10 minutes, and the rest of the time we can text if you want. But I can promise you that this one phone call will set you up for a better party. Again, tell them why we want a phone call, okay? All right, so effective host coaching with cooking shows, and it's really not all that different with online, is going to be attendance, outside orders, bringing a friend, outside bookings, inviting potential consultants, and offer the opportunity. These are the same things, okay? Same thing with virtual parties. At least 30 going, 15 to 20 active on the show, outside orders, inviting their friends. See how this is repetitive? This is the same thing, but making sure we're doing them every single time consistently is going to make the difference. All right, everything's better with friends, right? Okay, so what we're going to talk about is making sure that we are always telling our host that they should be telling each of their guests to bring a friend. Because when that happens, not only does your host have more people there, but you get to meet more people, okay? So if your host has 10 people coming, and your host tells all of his or her friends, make sure you're bringing at least 2 people. Even if only 5 new people come, that turns your 10-person party into a 15-person party, and there are more people that you haven't met before. Offering incentives for something like this is really going to make a difference. When you offer an incentive, stop and think, how much does this benefit the goal? Okay, so if we're looking for a $1,000 party, we want more people there. Do you want to give a bonus? Some people will do $100 order bags. Some of you may have heard of that. When somebody places an order for $100, there's a bag that you have little freebies in there. So if you're going to do something like that, make sure it's working towards the goal. Bringing a friend, getting the bookings, additional orders, those kinds of things will make the difference. Okay. All right, so this is another tic-tac-toe. I'm going to just go through a couple of different things here that you can look at. And I apologize, I did not silence my phone. Okay, so this is another tic-tac-toe, and if you notice, chat with me about the business opportunity is right in the middle. So this is another great way that you can make sure that you're talking with your host about what they can use for their Kit credit. You can also do a host with the most or hostess with the mostest group. So especially if you're doing virtual parties, this is great. You create a Facebook group and you can basically make them compete against each other. And again, we all tend to react to that. So if somebody's beating us, somebody's either going to want to do more and going to want to be better than that. Okay, so there's one example. Here's another idea. Okay, here's a banner, host with the most. Okay, and for this one, this is a great one to reinforce the attendance of bookings. So this is something that can go in a message. okay? And it doesn't have to be whether it's just virtual or in person, it doesn't matter, but this is what we're looking for, okay? Clicking going or how many people are attending. Attendance is key. We know this, make sure our hosts understand this. Another thing that you can do is different tips of the day, sharing with your host, okay? How many of you have ever done a video for host coaching? Anybody? So this is a really great idea. So there's a consultant, and what she does is she makes these host coaching videos, okay? She only has to make it once, but then she sends it via messenger so she can see whether or not the person has seen it, okay? So video is made for what's in the packet and what she expects, you know, as far as the party goes. It's like, you know, 7, 8, 9 minutes, somewhere in there, whether it's an in-person or a virtual party. And make sure, by the way, your virtual party hosts, make sure they're getting catalogs too, okay? Because they are not Facebook friends with everybody who might want to order, okay? So you're gonna, she says, like I said, she creates this video, and that way she can see when they've gotten them. If they don't reply, she can say, hey, did you see my video? Do you have any questions? So this is another really good way that you can do that, and you can still reinforce it, okay? All right, so how do we track all this stuff, right? All these great ideas, how do we track them? Now, you had all said that you use the checklist. How many of you are using the monthly tracker, the host coaching tracker? Do you know what I'm talking about, Amanda? Okay, is anybody else using it? Okay, so let me show you. Okay, so back here, back on PCU, this is your monthly tracker. How many of you guys have seen this? Okay, whether or not you use it, that's okay. Just curious if you've seen it, all right? And these are all, you can do it online if you're a digital person, or you can print them off. But this is so you can see at a glance where you are with each one of your parties. So as soon as you book the party, you write the information down, and then as you are doing each thing, you can check it off. Okay, so that makes it very simple. So between this and your checklist, you will be able to be like, okay, on this party, I've done this, this, and this. Pull out the checklist for that party and finish up, okay? One thing that Judy Joel taught me many, many, many years ago, as far as host coaching, this is a really simple system, and this was designed when we were only really doing in-person parties, but it still works just as well. So on every Monday, you host coach the parties for that week. Every Tuesday, you coach the parties for the following week. Every Wednesday, you coach your parties 3 and 4 weeks out. What that does is it ensures that you are in touch with your host about every 6 days, and it also makes it extremely easy for you to know what you should be doing and when, okay? So on Mondays, it's this week's parties. Tuesdays, it's next week's parties. Wednesdays, it's parties 3 and 4 weeks out. And you can still use the checklist, but it just takes that stress away. You know what you're doing every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday. Make sense? All right, so let's get back. So keeping track of it is key. So you know what you're doing and your host knows what you're doing. And you can create little shortcut things. Nobody can see your notes, so whatever works for you. So some people, if you're doing this on paper, you know, a GL is a guilt letter. Set them up on the website. Facebook means they set up the Facebook posts. Mail the host packet, you know, the Canva thing. So you can kind of do whatever you want to. Excuse me, if you're using the digital tracker, it really doesn't matter what you use. What matters is that you have a system that you can follow and that you can make sure that you are effectively getting everything done. So if you do not yet have a system, use the sheets that Pampered Chef has given us. Try that. It may work perfectly for you. If after you've done that for a month or two, you find it's not working, go ahead and tweak it, but make sure that you are tracking something the same way for every party, okay? All right, so we were also looking at some things that you're always going to want to make sure that we're doing with the cooking shows. Obviously, we're talking about staying in touch every week. You're going to friend your host on Facebook. You're going to send the packet, set everything up, get the recipe selections, interested in the opportunity, okay? Virtual party is basically the same thing, okay? And if you're doing post my party or send share, make sure you get all those things set up. And then the payoff here is remembering what we're getting for them. All right, so we want to make sure that our skill is in place, all right? We talked about the 4 different pillars: belief, passion, skill, and will. Here's the good news. Skill is the easiest place that you can kind of take it on yourself and fix. So if you ever feel like any of these pillars are crumbling, skill is something that you can just get some training on, and it will make a big difference, okay? So how can you fix this? You can practice with your tools. You can start developing personal stories about items. You know, oh my God, I made this pizza in here, or, you know, we came home wicked late one night and I had dinner done in the quick cooker, that kind of thing. Read your catalog. I'm not sure how much you're all aware that there is a ton of research that goes into the layout of that catalog. It's not just, oh, that looks pretty. Like, there's science behind it. So they put pictures in a specific place. They word things specifically. They light things specifically. It is a huge selling tool. So read the catalog. Actually read them. Know the descriptions. I scan it, but make sure you're actually stopping and reading as well, okay? Watch and listen to the home office and go to your trainings, okay? You're investing in this program, so that shows right there that you are willing to go above and beyond and get that extra training. So if there's a product that you're not sure about, like maybe the salad cutting bowl, it's new, maybe you didn't earn it, don't know about it, easy to learn, okay? You want to make sure that you're going to your team meetings. Go to spring launch. If your director is doing one, fantastic. If your director isn't doing one, see if you can get invited to one. Ask around. Make sure that you're attending those things. Going to national conference is one of the best investments that you can make. You will learn so much at conference. You will absolutely be blown away. Making sure that you're listening to all of the different audios. Did you know there's a bunch of audios on Consultants Corner? Does anybody ever listen to them? I'll show you really quickly where they are. So from Consultants Corner, okay, go to full site, training and resources, training audios. What do you want to learn? It's all right here. Booking, host coaching, selling, it goes through all of it. And just so you know, these are all, most of these, pretty much all of these are recorded at various national conferences, and the presenters are among the best in the company at what they do. So this is another really easy way where you can start adding to your skill level, okay? Watching YouTube. How many of you have watched like Marna Ross or Sharon Zellen or Michael Yoakley? Watch the YouTube videos. Yeah. Huge, 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 huge. You can learn so much from them, and it's easy to just kind of have it on in the background. How many shows are you doing? Practice makes almost perfect. But the more shows that we do, the better we get at things. Think about when you first started. How much did you learn from all of your different customers? How many different product tips did you learn? How many different like recipes did you hear about? A ton at the beginning, right? The more shows that you continue to do, the better you will get at all of that, okay? If we're doing, you know, 1 or 2 parties a month versus 2 parties a week, think of what that sheer amount of repetition is going to do. You do the same recipe once versus 8 times, how much better will you be? How much more effective are you going to be at explaining the power tools, at really working with people? Making sure that your calendar is full is going to make a big difference, okay? All right, so let's talk about homework. We're going to talk about building your skill, making sure you're using your products. Of course, you're all doing that, I'm assuming. Developing personal stories about the items. That sounds kind of weird, but really it's just sharing. What do you make in it? Are you taking pictures? Like, do your kids all know that they can't eat the food until mom takes a picture? Do they all know that? Because they should know that. You know what I mean? Making sure that you have those personal things. Talking about the catalog, going to trainings, going to conference, all these different things, making sure that you're doing this on a consistent basis. All right, so what you want to listen to this week is Host Coaching with Lisa Noto and Michael Yoakley. Okay, if you don't know these two, they are amazing and they're a lot of fun. And this is going to be under Host Coaching in PCU. Okay, and this screenshot will be up to you, don't worry. And email your director or message or whatever with at least 5 takeaways, 5 things that you walked away from that going, huh, that was pretty amazing. Okay. And then how many shows will you commit to doing this week? And this is what's going to make all the difference. And everybody has a different number for what makes a full schedule for you. But how many of you have a full January? Anybody? Okay. Yeah? Okay, we got some. What about February? Does anybody have February fully booked? Okay, so this is what we want to be working on. Okay. Michelle and I and every person across the board, we always are going to have months where we still need to be booking right up through it, and that's okay, but keep working on it. This is where partnering with your hosts makes a huge, huge, huge difference, okay? Should be doing at least one show a week, okay? 2 shows a week is going to get you to Disney, plain and simple. You want to go to Disney, it's got to be 2 shows a week, okay? That's just how it works. And then how many host coaching calls are you going to commit to? Okay, we know the system, making sure that we are actually doing them. Put them in your calendar when you book the party, okay? Setting up your follow-up calls so you can talk to your recruiter, talk to your upline, and we can work through these things with you. We want to talk about leads. How many bookings? What were your sales? Where did you get stuck? And what have you done well? And you all know this at this point. You get out of this whatever you put into this. So when we started this a couple of weeks ago, everyone's like, I'm going to Disney. Do you still feel that way? Still going to Disney? Okay. Make it happen. Make sure that you're committing to the time to get the bookings done, to do your host coaching so your host is partnering with you. Because here's the other little thing too. When your host is getting bookings and has a bunch of people there, your host is already being a consultant and they already know the job. So it only makes sense that you're going to start recruiting a lot of your hosts as well. And you really want to get to Disney through recruiting. It's so much more fun and it's so much easier too. Okay? All right. So any questions about anything we talked about today? Go ahead and unmute yourselves. I know that a lot of this wasn't brand new, but how do you feel about putting this all together as a cohesive package?
I mean, I'm participating in the Disney Bound program and the Director Bound program.
Yep.
And I mean, I do the calls Tuesday and Wednesday. So I feel like I do review it like just every once, you know, but I get more out of each call.
Mm-hmm.
And even with just the host coaching that we've done last night and tonight, like I've gotten so much more different stuff from you that I didn't really catch last night. So
Mm-hmm.
it's helping me build a better host coaching, I would say like profile or something. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing too. I mean, there is going to be, you know, a lot of things that all of the top consultants do the same. And then there's going to be a little tip here and a little tip there. That's why it's really important that we are all always taking trainings. And Michelle and I will tell you the same thing. We are still always learning. We are still always taking trainings because a lot of you guys who've been around for more than a month or two know this. We need to hear things multiple times. And sometimes we just need to hear it at the right time. So continuing to review things only makes you better. And it only makes you better for your hosts and for your future team. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Amanda. I always am learning. I'm always taking notes. I'm always getting things out of it. So that only makes you better. How are you feeling? How are you all feeling about kind of putting this all together? How do you feel? Let me ask you this actually. How do you feel? Like, how would you rate yourself right now, host coaching, like 10 being the best? And you can share if you want to, but where do you rate yourself?
I feel like I probably started at a 3 and that now I'm probably at like a 4 or 5.
Awesome. Good. And you're probably higher than that because we tend to be our own worst critics. But you want to think about, okay, if you're not feeling like you're like an 8 or a 9, what steps do you know that you're missing that you just need to implement? And talk to your recruiter about that. Talk to your director about that because we can help you with that. Okay, it may just be as simple as making sure you're reading the checklist and doing every single item on the checklist. Okay, but if it's something that, if it's simply a matter of, oh, I forgot to do it, or if it's something else, we can help you. Okay, All right. Any other questions about anything else we talked about tonight? Okay. I'm going to challenge each one of you to try something new. Okay, because like we talked about, a lot of this is kind of review. If you've never done Pic Collage or Canva text invites, challenge yourself. Do those this week for all of your upcoming shows. Get those done. Do the host tic-tac-toe. You've never tried it before? Try it. Try all these new things. Try different things. Try them for a month or two. See what your results are. Everything doesn't work for every single person, but until you try it, how do you know what's really going to work for you? So try the host coaching tic-tac-toe. Try sending the Pic Collage or Canva. Make sure that you're doing all these things, and I guarantee you will see a boost. Okay? Thank you all so much for continuing to invest time in yourself and in your business. Michelle and I absolutely love seeing your beautiful faces because honestly, the best part of what we do is working with you. And as you start to meet people and build your teams, if you haven't already, you're going to learn that's pretty much the case across the board. So do your host coaching because you and your host are partners, and partners always work better together. Make sure you're making it all about them. Focus on getting their free products. Talk to them about their wish list. Keep them excited. And make sure that everything you do is with a servant heart to make sure that they're getting everything that they want. And I promise you, you will get everything that you want in return. And we will all be going to Disney together. Sound good? All right. Thank you all so much. Michelle and I believe so much in every single one of you. And we know that you can do this. Thank you all, and we will see you soon. Take
Thanks,
care.
Julie.
Bye, everybody.
Night.
Bye.